The weather in Thailand this year is utterly exceptional anyway. Down here, the dissolved limestone has been gathered and reformed to create gardens of stone. Not that coral formations are lifeless, each is a colony of tiny creatures. These structures then are not mineral or vegetable in origin, but examples of animal architecture. Traditionally, I always first pause and feed the fish. It brings them to you, and you can start to get a good idea of what's about. Though I do feel a little guilty about this tinned cousin, tuna fish. Each fish could be one of 1,000 kinds known from the Indian Ocean. The variety is bewildering. Like most underwater naturalists, I'm intrigued by the variety of shapes and sizes, colours and markings. Why this kaleidoscope? Well, to start with, each species must look distinctive so that nobody mates with the wrong kind of partner. Secondly, fish must be conspicuous enough to attract mates and to advertise their presence to territorial rivals, but on the other hand, they dare not abandon camouflage altogether unless they have some other trick like diving into a hole. So you come to realize that the design of each fish represents a compromise hammered out by natural selection over millions of years. This is not a Mark I or a Mark II butterfly fish, but a Mark Million butterfly fish, a creature modified for its way of life by evolution. The same goes for the tiny blue and yellow damselfish. Here, two distinctively blue damselfish have successfully paired up and go through their spawning ritual. First, the female deposits her eggs in the piece of fluffy brown seaweed. Then I notice how the male fertilizes the eggs as he swims past the same spot. While all types of fish face the same problems, reproducing their kind, finding food and avoiding enemies, each has its own strategy, its individual lifestyle, its particular niche in the economy of nature. For example, while some fish live consistently among coral, others always stay in the open water and move around in shoals, there being no doubt safety in numbers, 100 pairs of eyes being better than one pair. Adolescent barracudas go around in hunting packs. Certainly their grey-blue concealing coloration would make it easy for them to steal up on their prey. Perhaps this pufferfish has to compensate for its slow movements by being well camouflaged. It can't rely on speed to get away, it simply hopes in the first place not to be spotted. But if that theory is correct, how then do we explain this conspicuously white pufferfish? I find it's difficult to frighten it into the open water, so maybe it relies on hiding in nooks and crannies. More likely, though, pufferfishes benefit from having distasteful flesh. Pufferfish meat is highly unappetizing. Once an enemy has tasted it, it won't try any more, and so the species gains. A school of grey mullet, grazing fish that descend on an area, clean up most of the small seaweed and move on. Being grey, the shoal is less likely to be detected in the first place, but once the grey mullet know they've been spotted, they respond in unison to a predator, packing tightly together. A different kind of safety in numbers. Among the more endearing reef inhabitants are the grey humbug fishes, so called because they're patterned something like sugar humbugs. The humbug's home is a coral castle. In each community you find there is one male and all the rest are females. When danger threatens, they dart into the coral refuge where no sizable carnivore can get at them. If the colony male dies and no new male turns up soon enough from another colony, then the largest female humbug changes sex and does the honours. Much of the humbug's time is spent sifting plankton food from the current, mainly tiny animals called copepods. The larger humbugs have the more favoured positions at the front of the feeding group, and each fish knows its position in the hierarchy and can individually identify all the others. But none is ever far from the hideaway. A simple experiment shows that if they are forced to remain in open water, they very soon attract some unwelcome attention. The slim, striped fish are cleaner wrasse that run a kind of barber's shop, removing and eating parasites from the skin of larger fish like parrotfish, and cleaning up their wounds. A fish identification book printed on plastic. It covers Atlantic reefs, not Indian Ocean ones, but some of the fish are the same. It's amazing that more underwater fish guides are not available. They're such a good idea. Look carefully at the pattern here. The eye has been obscured by that black streak, while at the rear there is a false eye. All round the tropics this same pattern occurs. Many attacking fish would normally go for the true eye, the false cleaner wrasse does for one. So the intention of this pattern is to deflect the attack to a less vulnerable part of the body. No eye stripe, but the false eye does stand out at least as well as the real one, and may create that vital moment of confusion in which an escape can be made. The bold patterns of these Moorish idols would seem only to make them conspicuous, but another fact we have to bear in mind is that many carnivores are active mainly in the half-light of dusk and dawn, when this pattern might well help Moorish idols to merge with the deep shadows. Once the washing up's done, one of the delights here is the way sun and shade, high water and low, provide variations on the visual theme of our bay. Whenever you glance up, there's a different picture. Swallows calling. At low water we can't get out, so I set off to explore the forest. Like those swallows I hear above that are winter visitors from the north, I think this butterfly must also be a migrant. It's a member of the swallowtail family, and I think it's refueling here before continuing its oversea flight to Malaysia. The giant hunting wasp is no doubt a resident of our island. This one's attacking an open honeycomb nursery of a small brown paper wasp. The robber is examining each and every cell with its busy antennae, but most of the larvae have already flown. The sheer size of this carnivorous insect is amazing. It looks fully 5 centimeters, 2 inches long. It's pulled out a larva on the point of hatching and will bear it off as food for its own young. One of the 858 species of orchid listed for Thailand. And one of the 849 birds known from the kingdom. It's a collared scops owl sampling a gecko. Since the bird is hunting by day, I guess it has a brood of large owlets and can't capture enough food by night for both family and self. The song of the blue rock thrush, a bird typical of limestone hills. This looks like a land crab. They're usually nocturnal, shunning the noonday sun for fear of drying out. The land crab is an opportunist feeder, scavenging what it can, animal or vegetable. It returns to the sea only to lay its eggs. Notice how it makes instantly for the shade, to reappear only at night, like many marine crabs. This marine crab interprets the light from my underwater torch as a rather sudden sunrise, and he retreats. We're on a night dive to check up on the fishes. How active are they in the dark, if at all? What comes out at night anyway? Well, feather stars do. They're a specialised kind of starfish, and this one's perched on a fan coral, a colony of animals, polyps, that arrange themselves this way. Another community of coral polyps. Again, it's difficult to believe that this is not a plant. No grey humbug fish about, but presumably they are in there, asleep, like almost all the other fish. The way sea urchins boldly emerge at night contrasts sharply with their skulking daytime behaviour. Not a contemporary undersea waste paper basket, just another kind of coral community, believe it or not. Well, there are few, if any, active fish. It's what we expected, but it's good to check. Next day I descend to find Martin Saunders quite deep, where there's little light and practically no colour. He's trying to capture on film an animal partnership that has all the charm of an Aesop fable. The little striped goby fish perched there is a watchdog for the prawn whose sight is so bad that it can hardly spot enemies for itself. The prawn, for its part, acts as an excavator for the fish which can't dig its own hideaway. When danger threatens, the prawn takes a tactile cue from the goby and both hide in the tunnel. They're tiny partners and very difficult to approach. In another sophisticated animal association, the orange clownfish gains protection from the sea anemone, an animal, a large polyp, that looks like a flower. All other fish would find fatal an embrace by these tentacles. The stinging cells stun in a few seconds, but the clownfish is known to be rendered immune by a special mucus on its skin that the anemone recognizes. A human finger is at once grasped by the tentacles. I'm not stung, presumably because my skin is too thick. It's not easy, however, to drag it away. The larger banded clownfishes gain comparable protection from their carpet anemone. To each its own. As far as can be discovered, the relationship is one way. The anemone appears to gain nothing. An experimental mirror to test the territoriality of the fish. As you'd expect, it's not shoaling fish, but those that go round singly or in pairs that have staked out reef claims, and from them, the response is immediate. Cleaners and wrasses, damselfish and butterfly fish suddenly find their homes invaded by the most persistent intruders they've ever known. Notice how this butterfly fish gets its head down almost like a stag. In fact, it has developed special little horns on the forehead for this purpose. The pair are really worked up about their mirror images. Now let's watch how a sober brown fish changes colour, turning white with rage to frighten off its supposed rival. First, white bars appear. The peacock rock cod is an undersea chameleon, resolving the need sometimes to be camouflaged and sometimes conspicuous by changing clothes from khaki to white and later back again. Despite my proximity, the brown parrotfish, normally one of the shyest of all down here, is only a metre away and totally absorbed with trying to see off its reflection. So strong are its feelings that it grabs anything grabbable on which to vent its rage. Its horny, parrot-like beak, incidentally, is normally used for attacking coral to get at the polyps. Soon we'll have to up mirror and up anchor. We must leave the fish to their way of life, defending their territories, finding mates and reproducing their kind, eating but trying to avoid being eaten. The varying ways in which they make a